Have you ever witnessed a situation so chaotic, so disgustingly unfair, that it made you seriously question whether human decency still exists? I certainly did, and truth be told, I still think about it from time to time because it didn't just shake my faith in people, it changed my whole outlook on life. Let me explain. Imagine this: a bustling train station on a rainy afternoon. Travelers rushing to catch their rides, the usual Monday madness. I was at Central Station, feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety because I was about to board a train to pitch my tech startup idea to a group of investors. It was the kind of opportunity that only comes once in a lifetime, something you rehearse for months and lose sleep over, knowing it's your one shot to make it count. I stood in line, gripping my bag tightly, watching people come and go, couples bickering, children crying, old friends hugging goodbye. It was all so human, so full of stories. Then I spotted him, a tall figure in a sharp gray suit, radiating that unmistakable "I'm in charge" vibe. Even from across the station, I could feel the cold, dismissive energy radiating off him. He brushed past the station clerk with barely a glance, sizing up everyone in the crowd as if evaluating whether they were worthy of his attention. I tried to ignore him. Maybe he was just having a bad day. I plugged in my headphones, settled into a calming playlist, and tried to center myself. But there's this nagging feeling like something was about to explode, and I was going to be right in the middle of it. Fast forward a bit, and I'm on the train, nervously double-checking my presentation deck. It's a long ride, so I'm trying to distract myself with a book. The Alchemist figured I could use some wisdom from the universe before my big moment. Just as I start to relax, I hear this voice. Sharp, entitled. He's asking the conductor if there's an upgrade available. She tells him no, and he goes off complaining about his elite status and acting like being stuck in a regular seat was some form of punishment. I look up. Yep, it's him, the man in the gray suit. He takes the seat next to me, barely acknowledging my existence, and then he casts a quick, disdainful glance at me, as if my presence alone bothered him. I try to be polite, but he looks away as though I didn't even exist. The train pulls out of the station, and I try to focus on the task at hand. I order coffee. He snaps at the server for an extra-large bottle of sparkling water, clearly thinking he's above the rest of us. The tension is thick in the air. I can feel it, and then, just as I'm trying to shake it off, he mutters something low under his breath, something ugly, something vile. It was a racial slur, not loud enough for everyone to hear, but loud enough for me to catch every word. My heart races. I'm frozen in place. I know if I call him out, it could escalate, but how do you just sit there and take that kind of hate? My hands tremble as I remind myself of the values my parents instilled in me. Hold your head high. Don't let ignorance drag you down. But it stings. It really stings. Then, as if he hadn't already crossed a line, he demands to be moved, claiming he shouldn't have to sit next to someone like me. The conductor tries to de-escalate the situation, suggesting other passengers might switch seats, but I can feel all eyes on us. My face burns with embarrassment, but I refuse to shrink away. I stand tall. I'm not moving. The man leans in, his voice colder than before. People like you don't belong here, he sneers. I don't back down. I pay for my seat, just like you. What's your problem? I don't care that my voice shakes. At least it's heard. A few passengers notice and begin to chime in. One woman across the aisle, Claire, calls him out. You owe her an apology right now, she says, her voice unwavering. He tells her to mind her own business, but she doesn't budge. It's my business when I see someone being disrespected for no reason, she replies. The entire cabin seems to hold its breath. Then, unexpectedly, another passenger, Marcus, offers to swap seats with me. No one should have to deal with that, he says. I thank him but refuse. I'm not going anywhere because of him. Why should I give up my spot because someone's full of hate? The conductor steps in again, warning the man that if he continues, he'll be escorted off the train upon arrival. The rest of the ride is a tense silence. The man sulks, scrolling on his phone, throwing me dirty looks. I do my best to focus on my pitch, but I can't stop thinking about him. Who is this guy, really? As the train nears its destination, I get a glimpse of his ID badge, David Montgomery, senior director at a major tech firm. The irony isn't lost on me. He's the type of person I could have been pitching to, the very kind of person who controls the opportunities that shape your career. The final hour drags by, but in the end, it's the kindness of strangers like Claire and Marcus that keeps me grounded. For every person like David, there are always a few who step up and make a difference. It's easy to feel alone in the fight, but moments like this remind you that you're not. As we disembark, David is the last to leave the train. The staff had already called ahead, and 2 officers are waiting for him. They escort him off with no fanfare, his face turning pale. Claire winks at me, and I can't help but smile. A small victory. Later, I hear that his outburst was caught on video and shared widely. It went viral. His company issued a statement announcing his suspension. A few weeks later, I get an unexpected email from another VP at the same company, eager to embrace inclusivity and meet with me. I laugh, but I take the meeting this time on my terms. If they want to work with me, it's going to be on my terms, not just some PR stunt. Months pass, and my startup starts gaining traction. I'm invited to share my story at a few panels and podcasts. I talk about what happened not to dwell on it, but because if we stay silent, nothing changes. Every time I share my experience, someone comes up afterward and says, "That happened to me too." Thank you. As I reflect on that chaotic train ride, I realize it wasn't just about standing up to a man filled with hatred, though that in itself was a powerful moment. It was about something much bigger, the impact of individual choices in the face of injustice. In that cabin, for a brief, intense moment, the dynamic shifted. What could have been a quiet acceptance of wrong became an opportunity for collective action. The truth is, we all have the ability to change the course of events. Even when faced with overwhelming negativity, it only takes a few to spark a shift in momentum. Looking back, I realize it's easy to be overwhelmed by the weight of one person's prejudice or cruelty. When you're on the receiving end of hate, it's easy to feel small, powerless, like you don't stand chance. But the truth is, we often have more power than we think. The people who stood up for me that day, the ones who didn't remain silent, they showed me that the quiet support of strangers can become a resounding force. Their actions reminded me that standing up for what's right isn't always about making a big scene, but about making sure we never let the small moments of injustice slide. The most surprising part of this experience was realizing that change doesn't always come from the top. It doesn't always come from the decision makers, the ones who hold the power. Sometimes it comes from the grassroots level, from the people who are willing to speak out in the face of adversity. Those passengers on that train didn't know each other, and yet they all understood the importance of doing what was right. They took the risk of speaking up, of putting themselves in a position where they could have faced backlash, and yet they didn't hesitate. And while the video of that man's outburst going viral was a form of justice, it wasn't the only form. The true justice was in how those around me acted, in how people collectively decided that certain behaviors would no longer be tolerated. It was in that moment that I truly understood the power of community and solidarity. Sometimes, it isn't the loudest voices that make the biggest impact. It's the quiet strength of those who step forward when others remain silent. What we often forget in these moments is that small acts of defiance, small decisions to not let hate slide, create ripple effects far beyond what we can immediately see. It changes the course of people's lives in ways we might never know. So, let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep showing up, not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. Let's hold each other accountable, challenge ignorance, and embrace the idea that decency and kindness are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. Because in the end, the world changes one moment at a time, and it starts with us. The more we stand together, the more we inspire others to do the same.